Snake worship is among the oldest forms of religion in the world. There's something about the powerful and deadly animals that has inspired awe for thousands of years. One of the world's oldest gods is Nyuvwira, a Sumerian serpent god. Snakes still spark fear and fascination today, and deep in the lakes and caves of southern Africa, massive snakes might still be lurking in the shadows. Like and sub to learn the secret of the serpents. We're diving into the mythology of southern Africa now. In this video, I will actually be looking at the myths of 14 different water and snake spirits and explain why I covered them all in one video and imagine my own speculative biology of this hypothetical being. Before we get started, I want to add a disclaimer. A lot of my research on Chitapo comes from Brian Siegel's 2000 paper, Water Spirits and Mermaids, the Copper Belt Case. This paper says it is not to be cited or quoted without permission. I made attempts to reach out to Siegel, but I did not hear back. However, as the paper is easily accessed on the internet and is 25 years old, I have chosen to use the research. Brian Siegel, if you see this video, feel free to get in touch with me. Your research is invaluable, and I would love to hear from you and credit you in a way you feel comfortable with. Siegel's paper is linked in the description. I highly recommend you read the entire thing if you're interested in mermaid myths of southern Africa, because it is such a great resource. Also, I want to apologize in advance for most likely butchering some of the pronunciations of the mythological creatures in this video. I tried, y'all. It's rough. Back to the 14 creatures I will be covering in this video. I'll start with Chitapo / Nakamwale. For simplicity's sake, I will call this mermaid Chitapo because that seems to be the more common term. Just know that Nakamwale seems to be synonymous with Chitapo. Like last month's Basimbi, Chitapo are a type of Bakizi or nature spirit who are particularly associated with water, mostly fresh water, including but not limited to rivers, lakes, waterfalls, springs, and underground bodies of water. Chitapo is a part of the mythologies of various Bantu-speaking groups in southern Africa. If you remember, Basimbi also comes from Bantu-speaking cultures. And like Basimbi, Chitapo is female. The Mlambo people of Zambia claim it is death to meet her face to face, for she captures people's shadows, and they then disappear into her lake. The same bartender who forbade Brian Siegel to photograph her image told him these mermaids are found in lakes Kashiba and Mweru at Victoria Falls and in the Atlantic. But the Chitapo spirit seems to have begun as a shadowy apparition and only assumed the guise of a mermaid in the last 50 years or so. So prior to 1950, she might not have been depicted in the typical mermaid way. However, we also know that globalization and colonization don't have to be present for a culture to have half-human, half-fish person myths, so Chitapo could potentially have appeared this way before 1950. The Shona people, another Bantu group, connect Chitapo to snakes. This is something I will keep coming back to in this video, as the Merfolk I cover are more snake-like than any I've previously covered in this series. There's also at least one instance of them being dangerous. A girl had to be rescued from a Chitapo that had trapped her in a well. And the Tonga people, also Bantu, have a really interesting Chitapo story Siegel recounted in his writing. A woman found a seemingly abandoned child at a lake. The child evidently appeared human. However, she refused to eat or sleep and dug her nails into the woman's skin. It's unclear if her nails were unnaturally sharp or not. She was also described as having hair. The day after the child was found, the woman returned her to the lake to hide her in the sand where she had first been found. Eventually, the woman and her friends carried the child into the lake. The little girl dove beneath the waves, and the people were carried away by the currents, possibly drowning. It was really unclear. This story is extremely dark, with strong similarities to changeling stories. There's two ways of looking at it. In the paranormal version of events, a Chitapo child was found by humans, and this resulted in the humans' deaths. Was the child a lure? Was it even a real child? Did the Chitapo spirits kill the humans intentionally? The non-supernatural way of looking at it is that someone drowned an abandoned child who was possibly suffering from abuse and/or a mental illness, causing their unusual behavior, and the people drowned as well, while in the act of killing the child. This comes with the territory for fairy child stories, as many European changing stories often read as people killing disabled children and claiming they were actually fairy children and not really worthy of human rights. But if this was a Chitapo of some kind, it suggests that they can take a completely human form. This is of course very common, and in fact shapeshifting has come up in practically every video I've done in this series. However, appearing 100% human, or even potentially taking a totally different form from your typical body, like appearing as a child instead of an adult snake person, is a whole nother level of shapeshifting. Mermaids continue to be believed in and cited into the modern era in southern Africa. I'm going to hone in on the alleged Zambezi River mermaid. Chitapo spirits are said to live in this river, which flows through Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, and is the fourth longest river in Africa, the longest east-flowing river in Africa, and the largest flowing into the Indian Ocean from Africa. The famous Victoria Falls is part of this river. In 2012, then Water Resources Minister of Zambia, Sam Sepepa Nkomo, told a Senate committee that mermaids have been hounding government workers off dam sites. I've linked a news article about this. The article described the mermaids as water creatures with a female body and the tail of a fish, and quoted tribal leader Edison Chihota, who I think is from the Shona people, who said that there is no dispute about the existence of mermaids. The angry mermaids were also linked to alleged deaths in the 1970s when political enemies had been drowned in the dam. This draws a connection between mermaids and the dead. Remember that, it will come up again later. Although I'm developing an all-new species for this video, it's possible that Chitapo is Atlanticus sembi. Still in Zambia, instead of Chitapo, some sources refer to female water spirits called Kitapo. Kitapo protects children and preys on bad men, such as murderers. She might even give those men over to Mamba Mutu. Part of Lake Tanganyika, Mamba Mutu's home, is in Zambia. Could Kitapo and Mamba Mutu be related? Is she the female of the same species as Mamba Mutu? I wonder. To quickly recap, Mamba Mutu are vicious crocodile men with lobster arms, who prey on humans in deep, dark Lake Tanganyika. Link to Mamba Mutu video in the description. Perhaps there's a relationship between the serpentine merbeings of this episode and our old friend Mamba Mutu. Keep watching to find out. Also in Lake Tanganyika is the lake god or spirit Kapembwa. He comes from the Lungu people, a Bantu-speaking group who traditionally live on the shores of the lake. Kapembwa has to be placated in order to have safe interactions with the lake. I'm not sure how that works with Mamba Mutu supposedly living there as well. Maybe Kapembwa has control over Mamba Mutu. Maybe he can protect people from everything but Mamba Mutu. Maybe Mamba Mutu lives in a different area of the admittedly huge lake, away from the Lungu people, or perhaps the Lungu people don't believe in Mamba Mutu and they don't factor into their mythology. Anyway, there's a shrine where people honor Kapembwa, but there is another shrine made by the god that only those pure of heart can see. It's a shining house that reflects all the colors of the rainbow. Despite the mostly positive nature of Kapembwa, it's also alleged that people may have sacrificed virgins to him at one point by throwing them off of cliffs and into the lake. This is similar to Mamba Mutu, who are also given offerings and kill people who don't show proper respect for the lake. I could not find a single physical description of Kapembwa. Let me know in the comments if you know what he's supposed to look like. I have some theories though. The first one that came to mind was that he was simply a specific Mamba Mutu. It's not uncommon for people to pray to the very animals that prey on them for protection. In ancient Egypt, for instance, hippo amulets were worn for protection, despite hippos being dangerous to the Egyptians themselves. Many of their deities had characteristics of predator animals like lions, jackals, and crocodiles as well. Perhaps Kapembwa is a specific Mamba Mutu that the Lungu people attempted to placate with worship and sacrifices, so that they could hopefully interact with the lake without being killed by Mamba Mutus. My other theory is that Kapembwa is a male Chitapo. He is a shape-shifting merman who lives in Lake Tanganyika. Remember how Kitapo was said to give victims to Mamba Mutu? Maybe that's what this means. Kitapo and Kapembwa aren't separate species, they're the male and female of the same species. Perhaps like lions, the females do the hunting and bring the kills to the males. Kitapo's victims were said to be evil men, and Mamba Mutu is sometimes said to kill those who disrespect the lake. So there's a way of looking at this where these are all descriptions of the same beings, who are perhaps protectors of Lake Tanganyika. The Basembi are also said to be protectors of water. Still with the Lungu people, we have Funkwe, also called Sanguni and Moe Malanga, which means the Lord of the Rivers. They have humanoid heads with bodies that look like a combination of a snake and a fish. Another source said that they are 80-mile-long snakes with fish-like tails. They live in underground bodies of water, often the sources of rivers deep below the surface. Chitapo are also said to live below ground. They can allegedly turn invisible, and at least one took a human form and married a human woman. Funkwe, befitting their status as Lord of the Rivers, are linked to the supply of fish and the overall health of the rivers they dwell in. They also seem to be male, so they might be the male version of Chitapo/Kitapo. Perhaps Kapembwa is a Funkwe? However, Kapembwa lives in a lake, and the Funkwe live exclusively in rivers. That eye-popping 80-mile length comes from the claim that a Funkwe grew to be the length of an entire river. Remember too that Basembis were said to grow proportionate to the size of the body of water they lived in. While 80 miles is almost certainly an exaggeration, the idea that these merbeings might grow to vast sizes is still on the table. The next merbeing I want to talk about are the Njuzu spirits, who come from the aforementioned Shana people, but seem to be specifically from the mythology of the Shana people living in Zimbabwe. I tried to find out the correct way to pronounce their name, but found 3 different pronunciations online: Manjuzu, Inzuzu, and Njuzu. I don't know if this is a regional thing or an accent thing. I'm going with Njuzu, but I don't know if that's the most correct pronunciation. Let me know in the comments if you know the correct way to pronounce this. Njuzu are explicitly positive. They teach people to become great healers. This reminds me of the Nomo, obviously, who were said to bring civilization, but also other merfolk myths around the world that associate them with healing. Like Chitapo/Kitapo, Njuzu are always female, and they inhabit bodies of fresh water, including those of caves, just like Chitapo. According to some sources, Njuzu are natural creatures made by God or the gods, while in others they are transformed souls of drowned babies, people who died before being married, or just dead people more generally. This fluidity between fairy being and ancestor spirit is not uncommon and appears in other cultures as well. This suggests that Njuzu look human though, and some claim they look like mermaids, beautiful women with fishtails. Some sources say that Njuzu look white, but another source claimed that those taken by Njuzu and transformed into great healers return with pale skin. This paleness might not have anything to do with looking white, but instead have to do with living in sunless caves. They might have the complexion of pale cave fish. Unlike Chitapo and Kitapo, there doesn't seem to be an association with snakes specifically. In Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, we have the crowing crested cobra, a cryptid snake that is sometimes aquatic. According to cryptozoologist Charles Cordier, he received a description of an aquatic snake that was 15 feet long and had a red crest. It's a far cry from the Funkwe's 80 miles, but it is big. Crowing crested cobras are not always aquatic though, and the main thing that they're known for is crowing like a rooster. Could the crowing crested cobra be related to or be the same species as the other creatures I've discussed in this video? Maybe. They're alleged to live in the same areas and be large and serpentine. The crest is similar to the forehead jewel that some of the other snakes I'm going to talk about have, and if I really reach, maybe the crest is similar to the hair that the other merfolk have. Hey, if manatees can inspire Mamlambo, then maybe roosters' crests on snakes can be misinterpreted as hair. They're also very dangerous, with deadly venom, which is in line with the danger that every merbeing we've covered so far poses, except for Njuzu. Next, on the border of Zambia and Malawi is the Inondo or Ngomi. These mythical snakes have glowing white jewels on their foreheads that can cure diseases. They can stand on their tails. Inondo can also be very dangerous, and only special magic can kill them. They're not aquatic, but they are deadly, like everyone except Njuzu. Like Njuzu, they are associated with healing, and standing on their tails could be interpreted as human-like. Still in Malawi, we have Mlambo, which sounds a lot like Mamlambo. These words are probably related, but I don't know enough about Bantu to confidently say that. Regardless, Mamlambo is coming later on in this video. Mlambo means lightning. It can take a snake form, lives in pools and forests, and can also turn into a wind that causes fertility as it blows by. This is similar to the description of Chitapo as a shadowy apparition. The fertility association also puts Mlambo in line with many other water spirits in Africa. And the last one from Malawi is Nyuvwira, also called Nyuvwira. They also appear in South African mines. They live underground, are associated with lightning like Mlambo, are said to be the largest snakes in the world like Funkwe, live underground like Chitapo, Funkwe, and Njuzu. They cause lights at night like Inondo, and are deadly because of their poison breath. That's the first mention of poison breath, but being deadly to humans is a common trait of the creatures in this video. More uniquely, Nyuvwira have 8 heads. In Asia, Nagas sometimes have multiple heads, and when I finally get to Asian mythology, I will most likely theorize that Nagas are related to these African snake beings. Also, they can supposedly generate so much electricity that they can cause planes to crash, so there's that. Before I move on to Lesotho and South Africa, I want to mention that snakes in Malawi are associated with the moon, rain, and fertility. They share these associations with most merfolk. The last 5 creatures I'm covering come from Lesotho and South Africa. They are the Grootslang, Inkanyamba, Intulo, Khanyapa, and Mamlambo. Grootslang means great snake in Afrikaans. They live in Orange River in Richtersveld, South Africa, in an alleged bottomless pit in the river. This obviously sounds like the perfect place for a merbeing to live. Grootslang are big enough to hunt cattle at the water's edge. They have diamonds for eyes, are 40 feet long, which is 8 feet longer than the largest known snake in the world, which was a 32-foot long reticulated python, and they exert an evil influence on all who behold them. Alternatively, they are part elephant. This was the interpretation Secret Saturdays went with when a Grootslang appeared on the show. As an aside, I will never miss an opportunity to reference Secret Saturdays. I love that show. Refocusing on the Grootslang, they are aquatic, massive like Nyuvwira and Funkwe, and their diamonds for eyes are similar to Inondo's forehead jewels. Also, some modern mermaid sightings in the area, mentioned in the book Merbeings, describe the merbeings glowing or jewel-like eyes. Inkanyamba are giant snake-like beings with horse-like heads. This makes them very similar to Mamlambo, who I will cover in a bit. They might cause rain and turn into tornadoes to find mates. They are still claimed to be seen today. On screen is an alleged photo of an Inkanyamba. The photo appears to depict a giant snake in front of a waterfall. I want to make it clear though that I know nothing about the photo's authenticity. In the same exact province that Inkanyamba has been reported, KwaZulu-Natal, there is another cryptid, Intulo, that I feel may be connected. They are allegedly bipedal lizard people. They seem to originate from an Nguni myth. Nguni, by the way, are a Bantu group. In the myth, there seems to be one Intulo, described as blue-headed, who the sky god Unkulunkulu tasked with telling humanity that they are mortal and are doomed to die eventually. They are not aquatic, but being reptilian with humanoid features makes them worth a mention, I think. I'm inclined to think that they might be a separate species though. Khanyapa, also called Kamapa, Kankudumundumo, and a variety of other names I can't pronounce, hails from Lesotho and South Africa. Like pretty much every creature on this list, it comes from a Bantu culture. The name might mean great noise, or it might mean gaping mouth bush monster, which is a completely different meaning. Stories about this creature vary widely, but one thing remains constant. It is ravenously hungry. In Lesotho, Khanyapa is a massive storm-causing water snake, which makes it similar to Grootslang and Nyuvwira. Interestingly, Khanyapa also features in a world repopulating myth, like most cultures have about the world post-deluge. Instead of a flood though, Khanyapa eats everyone, and the people are freed by the one person not eaten by Khanyapa. The hero named Sankatana Lituonloni or Dai Taulani cut Khanyapa open and freed all the people. Remember that Khanyapa is also said to cause storms, so perhaps he is a personification of the worldwide flood. Or ancient people seeing an enormous storm-causing man-eating snake believe that this snake caused the flood, thus creating their pseudo-flood myth. Lastly, we have Mamlambo of South Africa. The name might mean brain sucker. They are described as either serpentine or crocodilian. Sometimes they emit a green light, like Nyuvwira and Inondo. Sometimes their scales are said to resemble precious gemstones, which calls to mind Grootslang and Inondo. And they are huge in size, just like Funkwe, Grootslang, Khanyapa, and the crowing crested cobra. As their name suggests, they eat people, sucking out their brains. Sometimes Mamlambo even has a horse-like face, which reminds me of Inkanyamba and Nankinanka. When I did my Nankinanka video, I theorized that Nankinamba was a surviving dinosaur, but I'm going to make a different theory here. Still, these are all just theories that will likely never be proven. So it's also possible that Mamlambo is actually a dinosaur or a water horse or something. And Mamlambo is sometimes described as a specific female entity, which is in line with all the other female water spirits in this video, Chitapo, Kitapo, and Njuzu. She might be the daughter of the Zulu water goddess Mbamba Mwana Waresa, who is also the goddess of rain, rainbows, agriculture, and fertility. Rain is often associated with water spirits. Kapembwa's shrine is said to reflect all the colors of the rainbow, and agriculture is a kind of knowledge. Mbamba Mwana Waresa specifically taught humans to brew beer, which is somewhat similar to Njuzu teaching medicine, or the Nomo bringing civilization. Lastly, many mer beings are connected to fertility. Whether Mamlambo is the daughter of Mbamba Mwana Waresa or not, whatever that would mean, it's clear that she's part of a larger pattern here, one I'm about to attempt to put together. Before I do though, I have to mention that Mamlambo appeared in Secret Saturdays, where she had bioelectric powers, which I wonder if were inspired by her bioluminescence or by other myths such as Nyuvwira. Now it's time to put all this together. I have a theory that connects all the myths I've just told you that creates one hypothetical cryptid that I've named Bantu Speleon, which refers to the Bantu language group and the Latin word for cave or grotto. Except for Inondo and Intulo, all of the beings we've covered are freshwater and half of them live underground. As an aside, I think some Intulo sightings are not Bantu Speleon, but are instead a separate reptoid species that will be the topic of its own video someday, so we can determine that they live in freshwater and probably underground. 9 out of 14 are snake-like, and half of the list are gigantic in size, so Bantu Speleon are enormous snake beings. They likely appear humanoid on top and snake on the bottom, similar to Chitapo, Kitapo, Njuzu, and maybe Kapembwa. They are almost certainly shapeshifters. Nearly all mer beings are, and Chitapo, Funkwe, and most likely Kitapo and Kapembwa are too. 4, possibly 5 of the Merfolk have storm associations: Mlambo, Nyuvwira, Inkanyamba, Khanyapa, and possibly Mamlambo. Many of the creatures I've covered have rainbow or light abilities. I have some out there theories about that I will get into in a minute. Chitapo and Mlambo can become shadow beings, which might be a form of becoming invisible, which is a type of light manipulation. Inkanyamba can turn into tornadoes. Chitapo and Grootslang also have glowing eyes. Let's talk theories. I have 3. Firstly, they could be an advanced race native to Earth, unknown to us. I've theorized this before. I think that other sentient species could be native to Earth. It's obviously not likely, but it's fun to think about. It's also possible that Bantu Spelaon are aliens from outer space. For whatever reason, they came to Earth but have to live underwater. Maybe they originate on a water world? Why come to Earth just to live underground and have very limited contact with humanity? That is a whole nother can of theories and really heads into wild speculation, but honestly there's really no way to know. And of course Bantu Spelaon could be an unidentified animal, and all the supernatural powers are just legends and aren't actually real. But what about Mamlambo? They overlap with Bantu Spelaon's territory, and both Kitapo and Kapembwa have connections to them. If you recall from my Mamlambo video, I found very little evidence of intelligence in Mamlambo. But if we theorize that they are sentient, perhaps they have an alliance with Bantu Spelaon. If our Bantu Spelaon is an animal, then the relationship between Mamlambo and Bantu Spelaon could be a kind of watering hole truce type situation where predators share a space because they need a resource like water. Lastly, some animals engage in cross-species cooperative hunting, and Bantu Spelaon and Mamlambo might be doing that as well. There's some very interesting examples in nature of cross-species cooperative hunting. Coyotes and badgers sometimes hunt together. In the Red Sea, octopi and fish have been observed hunting together. Lastly, groupers and moray eels can coordinate and hunt together. This is super fascinating. Moving away from Mamlambo and cooperative hunting though, it's time for speculative biology. I put Bantu Spelaon in class Reptilia, just like Nankinanka, but they diverge after that. Bantu Spelaon is in order Homo squamata, which translates literally to man scaly. Squamata is the order that snakes are in real life, and the order Homo squamata will be the order for snake humanoids. The suborder is Homo serpentis, man snakes. Serpentis is the suborder of snakes. The family is Hydroserpentis, meaning water snakes. Bantu Spelaon lives primarily in underground water environments, so I've given my illustration pale scaled skin like that of a cave fish. The scales are small and non-overlapping, similar to those of sea snakes. They have no hair. Only the Chitapo and Njuzu are said to have hair, none of the others do. Additionally, reptiles do not grow hair, making it unlikely that any real-life snake person would have hair. They have big, shiny, even glowing black eyes that help them to see in their low-light environment. They have sea snake-like noses and mouths, and like sea snakes, they can breathe through their skin and hold their breath for hours before they have to surface for air. It occurs to me that Mamlambo is the only solely water-breathing species in the series, and that might be why they seem so animalistic and look so inhuman. It is something to think about. They have fangs like sea snakes, and are almost certainly venomous. This fits not only with all the myths of deadly merbeings and the fact that all sea snakes are highly venomous. It is possible that the venom liquefies their victims' bodies, enabling them to drink brains, as Mamlambo is said to do. As horrifying as that sounds, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Remember, the golden lancehead snake has venom that breaks apart red blood cells, causing hemorrhaging, and is powerful enough to melt skin, so brain-melting venom could exist. Like all snakes, Bantu Spelaon have no outer ears, and their inner ears are similar to sea snakes, enabling them to hear underwater. Bantu Spelaon have humanoid torsos, but do not have breasts. Only Chitapo and Njuzu are implied to have breasts, but it's worth noting that other snake beings, such as Maharagas and Nagas, do have breasts. Snakes do not have arms. No duh, you might be thinking. But it seems likely that Bantu Spelaon does have arms. I say this because Chitapo, Njuzu, Intulo, and probably Kitapo and Kapembwa have arms. Also, while I don't want to have some sort of arms bias, I also think it would be difficult to teach medicine, brew beer, or make secret advanced technology without arms. So I think Bantu Spelaon have arms. There are 2 extinct sea snakes who did have limbs, so this isn't a completely unhinged supposition. But these sea snake limbs were more like little flipper arms. I've opted to draw primate arms, webbed hands, which is basically just a total guess on my part. Let me know in the comments if you think Bantu Spelaon should have been limbless or have little extinct sea snake flipper arms. The lower half of Bantu Spelaon is a snake. They're also bioluminescent, emitting a white light from their bodies. They might use this for hunting or for communication. Many real-life fish species are bioluminescent. In my drawing, this Bantu Spelaon is in the process of turning invisible with a rainbow shimmer inspired by Kapembwa and Mababa Warisa. I will go more into the whole invisible thing when I talk about Bantu Spelaon's technology. Before I start constructing a hypothetical life cycle, let's talk about shapeshifting. Shapeshifting appears in pretty much every merfolk myth in the world and appears in many of the stories we've looked at today. The ability to shapeshift is obviously on pretty scientifically shaky ground, but it could be that Bantu Spelayon can shapeshift. It could also be that they use hologram technology to make them appear to be shapeshifting, or to appear as humans, or it could be that they don't shapeshift at all. Bantu Spelayon is cold-blooded and lives in underground rivers and hot springs in southern Africa. Incidentally, there are hot springs in KwaZulu-Natal, a location linked to Intulo and Inkanyamba. In my Mermaid special, I discussed my theory that merfolk could be hiding in underground cave networks connecting to oceans and blue holes in particular. Bantu Spelayon could be hiding in this way, enabling them to go without detection for so long. Conspiracies about reptilian races living underground have appeared throughout history, and Bantu Spelayon could be part of that tradition. Do you think that reptilian beings could be living beneath the earth? Whether they live more simply like primates or in advanced civilizations a la space aliens, life begins beneath the water. Mothers give birth to live young under the waves like real-life sea snakes do. They have large numbers of young, again like sea snakes. As they age, they shed their skin. They reach sexual maturity at an unknown age. Some sea snakes reach maturity at 2 to 5 years of age, while others we don't know the age of. They mate underwater. Sea snakes, depending on the species, can live up to 15 years, but Bantu Spelayon likely live much longer, and they can grow to be gigantic, based on the size of the body of water they live in, much like last month's Simbi. Bantu Spelayon are highly intelligent, and I postulate technologically advanced, potentially even extraterrestrials. To review, there are claims that these beings can capture people's shadows, whatever that means, shapeshift, move between dimensions, or manipulate light, Kapembwa's rainbow shrine, turn invisible, teach medicine, cure diseases, turn into a wind that causes fertility, generate electricity, and control the weather. Many of these abilities could be explained with advanced science. I don't know about capturing people's shadows, but shapeshifting and turning invisible could be achieved with holograms. Teaching medicine, curing diseases, and generating electricity are all things we can do, and controlling the weather and moving between dimensions could be done with advanced tech potentially. I don't know about the whole turning into a fertility-causing wind, but I do know that aliens, or just an unknown advanced species, could be the explanation for the myths here. Or maybe all these claims are just misunderstandings, mythologizing, and exaggerations, and it's just an unknown, snaky humanoid. We may never know.